Hello, everybody. We've got a question already. Ram Vera, Ram Vera. He says, whenever I play high G, I lose it soon after. How can I have a prolonged G? Um, so there's high G, and then there's the G above high C. Either way, I think the strategy is about the same. You know, this is going to sound weird, but I would strongly recommend something like my tonalization studies. So if you're talking about the G above the staff, I have a book called Total Tonalization. Let me see if I. All right, so. Oh, that's not it. I'll put a link to the book. Total Tonalization. Here's the Lulu link. Actually, you know what? It might actually be better just to give you a link to my book page because it's got all of the books. So here's a link to my book page. And if you scroll down, you will find a book called Total Tonalization. I'll spell that out here. That's the name of the book. And see, the reason why I'm recommending that, a lot of people might say that the answer to that question, the answer to that problem would be to keep trying. It's like the train that could, right? I think a lot of people mistakenly use the story of the train that could. Hello, Karen. They mistakenly use that story as a way to practice. And what that story is, the train that I wish I could, and I wish I can, I wish I can. That's a story about not quitting. But if you use that as a model for how to practice, it doesn't work. And I'm not saying people think that way. What I'm saying is that's how people actually practice. They keep trying, they keep trying, they keep trying. And this idea that you should never quit, if what you're doing isn't working, you will force yourself to quit. At one point, you're just going to say, what's the point to this? That's not going anywhere. So no, I don't think. So there's the athletic logic would say, hold it for one beat. Then when you can get one beat, hold it for two beats. Or someone might say, don't stop at the G, go for the A, or go for the G sharp. See, I don't agree with that. That's more of an athletic approach. That's more of a I think I can approach. And that doesn't work on the trumpet. Oh, did I do that again? Hello, Karen. This is number 191. You are correct. I must not have put. So when I'm setting these up, there's a spot where I have to pick a playlist. And sometimes I forget to put the playlist. I apologize. I can't do that afterwards. I mean, I can do it. I can't do it after we've started. So I apologize for that. Anyway, so yes, my idea, instead of trying to manhandle it and push it to the G, push it to the G, push it to the G, instead of trying to do that, go up to the G and back down. 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 It's the more you do that, the more natural, that G will become, the more natural that G will become, and then the more easy it will be to hold it out. And if you want to add a little bit of an element of lengthening to that, you can actually put a fermata on that top note. I often do anyway. That's why, by the way, when you look at the tonalization studies, they don't have bar lines. It doesn't have a time signature. No time signature, no bar lines. So that the implication of rhythm is gone. Without a bar line, without a time signature to say what is an eighth note, then the eighth note has no meaning. So the reason why I have the eighth notes is so that I can beam together the groups of notes. So let's say I'm doing the F. I would do it like that. Now, the tonalization studies, depending on which book you get, this includes the total tonalization studies, which is going to change names, but I won't get into that. Has 20 exercises for each key. They all go up to G. So you're going up to G 20 times in that one practice session. And that's if you're just doing that book. If you're doing my routine book, so let me grab this is the book for that level. So not only are you going to play 20 Gs, but let's count the number of Gs. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10. And now here's the 20, so that makes 30. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58. You get the idea. So you are, and these are all, with some exceptions, these are all short notes. So we're talking about over 50, probably closer to 60 notes in the space of about 45 minutes up to that G. As part of a system. That's my recommendation, is if you can do that, then your Gs will start to get longer and longer because you'll have more and more control. Karen says, that's okay, my phone works, but I can't type well. Okay. Karen says, yes, I'd say the tonalization studies have improved my range. See, that's what I'm saying. There you go, right there. It's about, now remember, and this is the part that I think people struggle to understand. And I don't say that in a condescending way. It's not their fault that they struggle. It's my fault for not saying it in a way that they would understand better. Okay? But I have been saying for a long time that, so this applies to range and getting a good sound, and there's other stuff, but these are the two most highest things. What we have to do physically to get higher notes is very similar to what we have to do physically to get a beautiful sound. And both of them require sensitivity and control that is beyond our conscious control and conscious senses. I believe we are able subconsciously. If you think of your mind as being two parts. You have your conscious and your subconscious. Your conscious mind is like a 486 computer. It does tasks, but it's very limited. Now, your subconscious mind is more like a Cray supercomputer. To play high it must involve, because of the physics of the trumpet, the way the trumpet works, it must involve using that Cray supercomputer side of your brain, not the little 486 side. Okay? The way our minds are designed, the way our brains are designed, the subconscious does so much more, and it does it much faster than what our conscious minds can do. Our subconscious mind is more sensitive, and our subconscious mind has more control. So when we're working on something that we want to change in our subconscious mind, because basically what the act of practicing is, the act of putting tasks, programming tasks into that Cray supercomputer. We're trying to push tasks that we're doing with our conscious mind, we're trying to push them into the subconscious mind. That's what practicing is. Some people call it second nature, right? You want to do something over and over again until it becomes second nature. Well, that second nature is the subconscious. That's the Cray supercomputer, the more powerful side of our thinking abilities. So to play high, you have to change your subconscious. And the way you change your subconscious is not the way athletes want you to think. It's not try harder. It's not hold the note longer. It's not anything like that. So, what I'm getting at is the way the tonalization studies work, and, to a smaller degree, the rest of the book as well. This is a book from my Trumpet Chops series. It's a full routine for people of that range. And the way these exercises work, with emphasis on the tonalization studies, the way these exercises work is that they feed your subconscious mind. They feed your subconscious mind information that your brain is going to digest and calculate. If high note playing is subconscious, then your brain needs more data to process that information. The less information you have, if you have limited information, then you're going to have limited growth. Now, there is another way to do this, but if you think of it athletically, it's not going to work. And I think a lot of people, it's not just my method that falls apart this way. I used to wonder how was it that someone could actually do all the exercises and do them correctly and still not make the progress? I think this is it. If their thoughts are, I need to try harder, it screws everything up. The idea is not to try harder. The idea is to feed more information into your brain. Basically, what do we call that outside of my little world? Experience. So what you could say is that the tonalization studies give you experience in that key, experience over that range, experience with those fingers, those fingerings. And the word I've been using lately, because it's part of my, what do you call that? The art of accumulative practice. I call that experience, I call that familiarity. The more experience you gain, the more familiar you become with the music, or whatever it is that you're doing, right? The more you do of it, the more familiar you become with it, which is very important. Because that familiarity, I mean, let's look at it. Familiarity is when your brain kicks in and says, "Oh yeah, I got this. I've done this 20 times, I've done this 50 times, I've done this 100 times. I've got this," right? That's familiarity. That's something over and above what you would do with your conscious mind. Your conscious mind. So what do we know about the conscious mind? Conscious mind can only think of one thing at a time. I remember sitting down. I haven't done this in a while. I remember the first time I did this. I sat down and wrote out a list of how many things we need to think about while we're playing the trumpet. And I came up with a list of over 50 things. Your mind, your conscious mind, can think of one. If you try to think of two things at the same time with your conscious mind, you will screw it up. You cannot perform at your greatest if you're trying to focus on two things at once. Now add 50, right? Add 50 things. That's crazy supercomputer stuff right there. And you know, when I counted out those 50 things, that was before I learned a lot of the stuff I know now. Anyway, so there is a way. I don't want to. I need to say this because there is a method that works that involves playing longer notes. But I don't think it works if you get to the note that you can't play and try to hold it. So the other way to do this, instead of being muscular about it, instead of being athletic about it and saying, well, if I'm having trouble with the G, let me hold the A. Instead of that failing philosophy, if you instead try to hold the E longer, when you can hold the E for 32 beats at 60 beats a minute. Basically half a minute. If you can hold the E and if you can't do the E for half a minute, do the C for half a minute. And then do that not once, not twice. This is not about trying to see what you can do. This is not that. This is training your mind, your subconscious mind, giving your mind data. So what my book does is it goes up and then back down, up and down, up and down. That's going to help you with the range. That's going to help you with your familiarity. And then what will come with that later will be being able to hold out the notes longer. But if you want to go from this other direction, you play it. Let's say you can't do the E for 30 seconds. So instead, we're going to do, wow, look at that. That happened last time too, didn't it? Yeah, it's back. Okay. All right, so a very slow scale going up to the C. I'll put my timer on. Okay. Oh, that was actually harder than I thought. Maybe not 30 seconds. But no, I just wasn't prepared for that. So do that. And actually, the higher you go, the less air you need, right? Because the aperture gets smaller. So anyway, don't do that once and say, oh, I can do that. You do that 10 times. Do what I just did. Rest another 30 seconds. Do it again. Rest another 30 seconds. Do it again. Rest another 30 seconds. Then do it. Maybe that's as far as you go today. You have to be wise about this. We're not training your lips. We're training your subconscious mind. So, there's people that say, well, I can already do that. I can already do that. Okay. That's why you're repeating it 10 times. Because you already do that. You already do that correctly. If you feed your mind data that's flawed, it only has flawed data to process. So these guys that keep trying to get high notes, they will never be great high note players like that. I'm not saying they'll never be great high note players, but that's not going to get them there. Do what I just did 10 times. Tomorrow, try it on the C sharp. Then the next day, try it on the D. And how fast you progress should be not based on your strength, but based on how quickly you absorb that information that you're feeding your mind. Now, what information could your mind be getting from one long note? Your mind is getting a a feel for the perfect balance of that note, the perfect balance between air pressure and resistance. So yeah, I spent how much time? That's almost half an hour talking about that. But you know what? The one that I prefer is the one I showed you first. Um, Go up to the G, back down. Up to the G, back down. That's, in my opinion, that's the best. That's the best way to do it, in my opinion. Anyway, any other questions? So I did finish a few pieces this week. I finished the Gloria for Seppo. I think what I want to do before I give it to them, I don't think they're in a hurry. So I think I want to record it for him first. I'm not going to release it until they have a chance to perform it. So I know that might be like a year away or something. But yes, nice to have something like that done. I just hope they can play it. It's, what I learned early in my writing career is that as far as ensemble stuff, the counterpoint is harder to learn because there's like this sort of groupthink that happens. Like if you have a piece that's more rhythmic and not contra, like what do they call it? Accompaniment stuff with melodies and stuff like that. Melody over an accompaniment. Then everything kind of gels already. And people have the group will have more, what would you call that? Synergy, where they all feed off of each other. But with counterpoint, you're specifically going out of your way as a composer to screw that up. So it's actually kind of funny. I had a great composition professor, and he was very good at communicating that kind of stuff to me. Like if you write a G flat or an F sharp, how that affects the performer mentally. And what else did he show me? He showed me about continuity. So, like, if you don't have any diminished chords, this is something specifically that he told me. If you don't have any diminished chords in the whole piece, except for one, he says that can be a problem because the texture has changed. I see it a lot. If your composition has all triad, 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 and now all of a sudden in one of the chords, just one chord out of the whole piece has like 3 extensions. Hello, Tim. Tim says Happy New Year from Oklahoma City. Yeah, so if you have a song where the context is everything's triads, and then all of a sudden you have a G7 chord with a sharp 9, a flat 9, and a sharp 11, and a flat 13, that's not going to fit with the rest of the song. So he taught me stuff like that. Yeah, I think he was a excellent teacher. His name was Joseph Packeles. Let me see if there's anything on him online. Yeah, you know what? The problem with some of these guys that died so early into the internet. Oh, here he is. Yeah, let's not go to that website. Uh, yeah, why do they put so many ads on a website like that? That's just terrible. Oh, here's his obituary. Born in New York City. Ah, it says the second sentence says, although he was a native New Yorker, he was a diehard Red Sox fan. That's just funny. Okay, I won't put this one because it doesn't have his photo on there. You know, I took composition lessons with him. Wow, look at that. There's a interesting. There's a book, a rare book for sale about Alban Berg that's signed by my teacher on sale for $50. Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, what I was saying is that there's a lot of people who are very important. Well, here's something. This is a link to the CD that they published right before he died. That's one. That's some of his compositions. Well, I guess at least one of his. Let me see what else I can find. But yeah, because he wasn't around during the internet and because he wasn't so famous before he died, that people just had like all kinds of his stuff, he's kind of disappeared. And that's a real shame. So here's a photo of him from 1975. No, 1979. I'll put this and then we'll move on. This is a very cool photo. He didn't look much different from that when I started taking lessons with him. Anyway, I had okay. Karen says there's an Arvin exercise 46 on page 20 that changes key every line. Is that good or confusing? Well, let me tell you guys about my teaching strategy. I guess you could call it a strategy. Hello, Mariola. I, I, nice to see you. He says, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. Um, so, exercise. Oh, yes. Let me tell you about my overall strategy. for teaching. It's just you could call it a formula. You have the introduction of the subject. That's why let's use, in this case, we're talking about scales. Let's talk about scales. You have the introduction. I like as an introduction the expansion studies. If you do a great job on the expansion studies, you won't have trouble. Well, I have actually some students now that are playing keys that they never played with before. I'm talking about specifically 2 students right now, and they just started F sharp, which is the last key, and they do everything exactly the way I say to do it. When they need to, they slow down and all that stuff. They do every repetition 10 times. Now they're playing the key. The last one I heard was B, and it's like nothing, right? Like I would expect, the way I've been teaching all along. That's how it should be. There are things that make things break down, like practicing too fast, flubbing over mistakes and not doing anything about it. So anyway, when you do the expansion studies, that's your introduction to the key. Makes logic sense, right? Because you're adding one note at a time. You do 10 repetitions, and in and of itself, that's like a micro application of the macro approach, because you're adding one note, an introduction to that one note, and then you're repeating it. So those are the first 2 steps. Introduction, which is the expansion studies. Repetition. Repetition is the tonalization studies. We do them over and over and over and over and over. Then, the third and last step is integration. That's the whole formula. All of my teaching is based on this. That's what working backwards is. Working backwards, when you work backwards on a song, you're introducing yourself to that song. It's a great way to gradually learn the whole song. Then we have, after that, if it's something we're going to take it that far, we have the repetition. We keep doing the song over and over and over again, which is a step that a lot of people skip. They keep drilling, but they only drill parts. There's something that happens when you do the whole thing. So yeah, you have that repetition. What is integration? Integration is when you integrate that material you were repeating into other contexts. Now, I think the best way to do the integration is to play music. Music is the ultimate integration. Because with music, you're playing that key, you're playing rhythms, you see what I mean? You're mixing all this stuff up with the key. But that's not the only kind of integration. So I don't remember the exercise on that page, but I have an exercise that was taught to me. I'm going up C, down D flat, up D, down E flat, up E, down F. So yes, that's integration. Yes, that's good for you. The integration part is what takes your repetition and moves it into your your ability to to play music. As long as it's just an exercise, it has limited application. But when you do the integration, so you know what I do is I play exercises like that for fun. It's not part of my routine. I don't think there's as much benefit to doing something like that in the routine. Believe me, I tried. I'm not saying that just out of ignorance. There was a time when I was trying to do stuff like that. Um, so exercises that cover all the keys in one breath and all that. I don't think there's as much benefit to that as doing one key, one scale for a longer period of time. Just because of the way our mind processes that information. I don't mind telling you the story about how I got the tonalization studies. If I've said this already, you guys can tell me, and I'll stop. But the whole thing with the tonalization studies started when I was in the music library at the university, listening to a Charlie Parker album. And on the liner notes for the album, it was talking about how someone was sitting outside the door where Charlie Parker was practicing, and he was there like 8 hours, like an all day practice session. And what the guy was so amazed about was that Charlie Parker was practicing in the same key that whole time, one key. Now, why was that such an eye opener to me? Because all the educators in my life up until that point had told me that as a jazz player, I have to do everything in every key. And that's how I was practicing at that time. I would take everything I was working on and play it through every key. Now, I still do some of that. There are contexts where I will do a lick through every key. I still do some of that. But so here's the thing. Why would that be of an interest to me? Because I was doing what all the educators told me to do. And I could not play in every key. I could only play in one key. All the other keys fell apart. And I kept gravitating back to that one key. And we're not talking 1 year into this, 2 years into this. I was an avid practicer all the way from high school. I practiced more in high school than what I ever hear about kids today. Much, much more. But a lot of what I was practicing was stuff that we're taught, you guys just got to try harder. You're not trying hard enough, right? It wasn't working. So here I am, after all these educators telling me I got to do everything in every key. And I'm reading an album cover that says Charlie Parker practiced 8 hours in one key, which was almost the opposite of what the educators are telling me. So I thought, you know what? Because back then I was playing urban stuff. I was doing basically trying to cram all 12 keys. In fact, not even all 12, because we had the harmonic minor, we had the melodic minor, the pentatonic scale. I started practicing pentatonics in high school. So I had literally dozens of scales I needed to practice. That because of this whole got to do it every day, got to do it every day, I was trying to cram all those scales into one practice session. It wasn't working. Today, so that's when I figured out. Instead of trying to run all these things through every key, this is when I took all the skills I was working on, because the concept that I was doing wasn't working, but the exercises were good. So I took all these different exercises, combined them into one study. I took what I liked most about from this one, I put into mine. I took what I liked from this one, I put into mine. So this was before. So I created my system in 1985 or 87, something like that. 2 or 3 years before that is when I figured out these skills. So I created the tonalization studies first. Then I created the physical trumpet pyramid a couple years later. But the key is that I did those scales in a way now that I'm only doing one a day, but cycling through them, so I'm still getting every key. But my mind now has time to process the one key before I move on to the other. And at that time, I was practicing one key per week, not a key per day. Today I do a key per day. A lot of my students do one key per day. But if you're not like an amazing technical person, you might want to experiment with one key per week, just because of the way that affects your subconscious mind. I hope that makes sense. So yes, the tonalization, that's why the tonalization studies are so good for your range. Not just because they go high. It's not a physical thing. So, I hope you guys didn't hear that. Yeah, it's not a physical thing. It's not, oh, I went up 50 times to G and now I've got that strength. It's not that. It's I went up to 50 times and now I don't need that strength. That's more like how it works. I went up 50 times. I'm so familiar with it now, it just comes out naturally. So yes, the tonalization studies do help your range because they help your mind, your subconscious mind, collect data to process. I hope that makes sense. Any other questions? I am standing up. You guys convinced me last week. Well, it wasn't that you guys said anything, but I apologized last week for sounding so bad, and I was sitting down, and I decided, you know what? Last Friday, I decided I should be standing up in every lesson, and I should be standing up for this. Because when I pick up my horn, I can play the way I'm trying to relearn how to play. I told you guys last time that I'm changing the way I play for health reasons. So this is more like how I used to play. And that still feels more natural to me. I said last week that I can't play like that, and that's true. When I say I can't play, I don't mean the notes don't come out. When I say I can't play like that anymore, what I mean is that I can't play at the quality level that I'm used to. So if I'm playing like this, so notice the main feature here is that I've got my elbows in my side. That's how I always played from all the way from junior high. So that's how I used to play. What I'm changing it to now, and I'll tell you what, the daily routines, whether it be the Chops Express or the Trumpet Chops books or the daily routine book, when you need to make a change like this, like I'm making, those books were designed for that. That's a very important point to make about those books. They're all based on the physical trumpet pyramid. The physical trumpet pyramid is perfect for doing what I'm trying to accomplish right now. I'm still not there yet. Obviously, it's a lot better than it was last week. So let me take you through that process, right? I'm going to the posture that I'm trying to do at all times. Like that, right? As opposed to this. Okay, so here's the posture. I do the air first, right? I'm keeping that posture. Then after the air, I do the mouthpiece. I'm in the lip buzz. And I'm trying to keep that same posture even for the lip buzz. Then I do the mouthpiece placement. Anyway, I'm going through all those different stages of the pyramid with the posture in place so that when I finally get to playing the horn, it's like a whole different person. And it's starting to become more comfortable now. I told you guys last week it felt extremely unnatural. It felt very unnatural. Let me double check that there's nobody that has left a question on the email, or, officially I'm not supposed to take questions from the email. It should be on the website, but a lot of people don't know that. So anyway, doesn't look like there's any questions. So anyway, yes, this is already, it's close. I'm not 100% yet, but this is already. It's almost there. Praise God. Hallelujah. It was a struggle for a while. I told some people, I said, I've had in my lifetime like half a dozen of these major changes, major struggles. And because here's the nice thing about that, because I have had those struggles in the past, I don't panic when I have to do it again. I mean, even, when my teacher in college changed my right hand position, that was a huge shock, right? I used to hold my instrument where the weight of the horn rested on this finger. like this. That's how I used to play. And so I can even feel like this. And by the way, the scar from that, because that's how I played for, I don't know, that would have been 10 years. The scar from that never went away. I still have, if it's hard to see, you wouldn't be able to see it through the camera, but I still have messed up tissue right here. So yes, that's my old hand position. Then my trumpet teacher, Sam Trimble, in college, taught me to put the weight of the horn here, so that these fingers and the thumb were free to do the slide. Look at that. Okay. That's a whole, once again, that if you've been playing the other way 10 years, that's a shock. That's a huge shock. And seriously, Karen and I talked about in her last lesson about whether this should be dry or whether this should be wet. I used to play dry. Switching to wet was also one of the hardest things I ever had to do. So I just see this posture thing as just another one of those. What makes the posture thing a little bit more difficult is that I'm not only doing it while I'm playing trumpet. So you guys heard me when that first week, in fact, you see me like leaning on the desk because I'm getting tired, right? I'm somebody that has slouched my whole life, and standing up straight takes a whole bunch of energy from me that I'm not used to expending. Tim says, I am working in group 3. Takes me about an hour to go through it, and I'm pretty tired. I have not started other keys. Do you recommend I move to group 4 and stay in C, or stay in group 3 and move it into other key signatures? I recommend you stay in 3 and get all those keys first. Seriously, there's a lot more benefit to get from changing the keys than there is to changing the range. It's not even, if it was a scale, it'd be like this. There's so much more benefit. Remember, we're talking about programming your subconscious mind. There's something that happens when you make it through all those keys. Something huge. So, and that said, to me, what did I just do? To me, I always recommend people increase their range slowly. I always believe that should be slow. Because of this, what I'm telling you about with the mental side of it, the subconscious side of it, the slower you go, the more of this foundation you have to build on when you go to those higher notes. The slower you go. Now, there are some people. See, none of this stuff is universal. It really does change according to how people think. The way you think can screw all of it up. It really can. But that's my recommendation. Hello, Richie. Richie says, I found out that the most important thing is to enroll the lips to get the right embouchure. Is my assumption right? If it is, so it's actually quite simple. I'm going to say, let me first say there's no right or wrong. Okay, so I like to tell people that no physical work, no, I said it the wrong way. All physical work should be done for musical reasons. I'm going to say that again. All physical work should be done for musical reasons. So you don't hear some famous guy say, oh, like in something like this. If you want to be a great player, you got to roll your lips in. Now, it's true that there are benefits to rolling the lips in, but what are you trying to accomplish? You know, I know this is French horn, and I can't remember, I think it's called Einsetzen. Let's see what it is. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't put that. Nope. So I don't know how to spell it, so I can't look it up. There's a horn embouchure where they set the mouthpiece here and roll the lip out, which is the opposite of what we're talking about, right? Now I know that's horn, but that's very close to how I used to play. And oh, the sound that produces is different. When you curl the lip, now let me tell you this. I play with the curled in. So I just don't want to say, yes, that's the right way to do it. I won't say that. You have to know what you're trying to accomplish and do. So you do what you think is going to get you where you're going to go, where you want to go. So what do? You try curling your lips in. You know what you want to sound like. If you don't know what you want to sound like, then you're not doing enough listening. But let's assume you do know what you want to sound like. And you try rolling out, you try rolling in. Which one of those two makes you sound the way you want to sound? So it's not as straightforward. But that said, most people are going to probably benefit from the curling of the lips in. Would I say it's simple? I wouldn't say it's simple. What happens? Okay, so when we might think that it's simple, is that if that was the one thing missing out of your trumpet makeup, if that was the one thing that was missing, because this happened to me, not exactly this, but this has happened to me, where I tried one thing, and bam, literally overnight, I'm a better player. Overnight, I went from cracking notes all the time to never, almost ever. I went from like I don't know, 10 crack notes per song on a gig to sometimes not even one on a song, like crack notes were almost gone, shrunk by over 90%, just by changing one physical thing. So that happens sometimes. You might have, if you have everything else in place, but one piece of that puzzle is missing. And then someone says to you, try this. And you try that, and it's like the whole piece has, the whole puzzle has come together now. The whole picture is there. It wasn't because you changed your lips. It's because the changing of the lips was the only piece missing. So because because when I answer these questions, I'm not only answering the question for you, I'm also answering the question for the people who are listening. And it's quite possible that someone might interpret what I'm saying as to say that if you curl your lips in, it'll make you a better player. That's not how it works. Lip curl is part of the equation. There are people that will criticize you for doing lip curl because they call that getting a pinched sound. They tell you should not have curled in lips, you should have relaxed lips. Well, I don't do that. I have curled in lips. Now, I do have to go, but let's talk about one more thing. How much should they be curled in? You know, I remember the last time I went to this one doctor, and this is part of the reason why it was the last time. I'm walking out and she says, eat less red meat. Now, what is that supposed to mean? She doesn't know how much red meat I eat. That's just a religious creed. Eat less red meat. There's no scientific, logical sense to that statement. I actually don't eat a lot of red meat. I eat a tiny bit. Comparatively, like if we're talking about the average American diet, I eat probably, from average, 10% of what most people eat. And her comment to me as I'm leaving is, eat less red meat. She didn't know how much red meat I was eating. And it's the same thing here, right? If we say, oh, yes, curl your lips in, that means nothing. How much are you going to curl your lips in? Remember, to get better range and a better sound, you need a perfect balance. So when we talk about curling the lips in, we're talking about changing the resistance. We need a perfect balance between the air pressure and the resistance. If you curl your lips too much, now you've got too much resistance. So how do you know what's too much? How do you know what's not enough? So it's not good enough to just say, curl your lips. That's not good enough. That's just a step in the right direction. So that's why I said earlier, I wouldn't say it's simple. It's not simple at all. It's not simple at all. So So yeah, I do stuff to figure out how much of that curl I should have. I do stuff. It's part of the routine. If you buy these books, this is not an ad for my books, but this is the stuff. The stuff I teach is in here. Okay. So this has got lip bends. It's got pedal tones, and the lip buzz. All of that is to help you control that curl so that it's the correct amount of curl. I mean, look, I'm going to lip buzz a scale, and you're going to see that the curl actually changes as I go higher. I guess you can't see it. Let me try this way. I hope you could see that. I'm looking in on the playback, and I can't see it. I can feel it. I can feel that it's curling in like that, but it's so subtle. And that's real. I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? The conscious mind can't see it, can't feel it. Subconscious mind has that control. Tim says this should be an ad for your books. I understand that it is. It works that way. That's not my reason for doing this. And you guys know this, I have recommended other products. I've recommended other books. But it's only natural for me to recommend my stuff because the reason I wrote my stuff is because it doesn't exist anywhere. I have this rule, right? And I've had this rule from the very beginning. Partly because when I first started writing, it was so hard. The first book, the physical trumpet pyramid book, I think it took me 3 years to write that. The second book took a whole year. And so yeah, I decided long time ago that I would not write anything that already existed. And there's a lot of times where I've even bought books like that, trumpet books, and I open it up. I'm like eager to get this book and start working on it. I open it up and it's like, oh, it's the same stuff. It's the same stuff. Maybe they repackaged it in a different way. It's the same stuff. So I decided I would never write a book or a composition or back when I was on the internet, like the internet forums, I wouldn't type an email to contribute if I didn't have something different to say. That's why my stuff was all so very controversial back then, is because the only time I wrote is when I didn't agree with anybody. Why would I write in and say, well, yes, I agree. I think that's how it should be. And what's even worse is the people who say, this is how it should be. And 5 other guys just said that. Who is that helping? No, the only time I write in is when I know I have a different angle, a different approach, a different idea. And so for the books, the compositions, all of the exercises, I only write them when I know there's a need that isn't being met, when I know there's a specific product that doesn't exist yet. That's when I write it. I think that's partly why the books are so successful. I really do. I don't know anybody Of course, I don't know a lot of these guys. I don't know anybody. Let's put it this way. I don't know any non-famous people that make this kind of money, that have this many sales um, from books and compositions. I don't know anybody like that. So it's different if you're famous because then your fame sells the stuff, whether it's good or not. Um, they're not buying the book, they're buying, the people are buying that person. In my case, the people don't know who I am. They just know that the book works. They need help, and the book works. So it's the you know, in the business world, they try to make you like artificially create that. In the book, they say in the business world, they say you need this to fill a need. You need to satisfy a need, find a need, and the most unethical part of it is that a lot of times they don't actually go search for people that need. No, they try to convince you that you need, and it's disgusting because they're playing with your brain. They're playing with the way you think. They're playing with your beliefs so that they can sell you something. And I promise you, with me, it's not like that. I'm selling you stuff that I created as answers to my students' problems. I sell stuff that already works for other students. I didn't create a product and then try to make people buy it. So anyway, I'm not apologizing. Tim says, this is your world, Eddie. We appreciate you letting us be here. You should be pushing your books. Oh, you should be pushing your books, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm not pushing, you know. It's just that's not how I'm wired. I am so here's how I see it. And I'm going way over, sorry. This is how I see it. I'm here to help people. That's I don't want to say it's my calling. My calling is deeper than that. Let's say it's part of my calling. I've been wired this way since I was a kid. I'm here to help people. And in this case, it's helping people play trumpet. You guys know my story, right? I don't cross the line. We don't talk about stuff that's outside of trumpet. So even when we do go outside of trumpet, it's always for trumpet. So if I'm here and I want to help you, and someone says, "Well, how do I get that high note to stay longer?" Well, if I know that my books are going to help that, I'm not saying, "Oh, well, this is a great opportunity to sell my book." No, that's not how I see it. The way I see it is I know my book works. You know, if you read the one range book, I specifically wrote the one range book so that if you didn't want to buy all my other stuff, because it can get expensive, right? If you just want to take the concept and apply it to what you're doing already, you can do that and you get results. It might not be as quick as if you use my books. It might not be as convenient. But I wanted people to have that philosophy, right? I wanted people to have that strategy. I call it a strategy, right? I wanted them to have that strategy whether they buy my other books or not. I want to be able to help. So yeah, that's the way I see it. And yes, okay, and as far as me getting rewarded from it, I don't see it the way other people do. I'm a Christian. And I'm the kind of Christian that believes in all that supernatural stuff that people are so afraid to believe in today. So I believe that when I do things for you, when I help you, that God in turn helps me. My reward, now, don't get me wrong, if I do help you and you buy my books, I still see that as coming from God, but I thank the person who decided they wanted to buy my books. I'm not saying, so it's a kind of a tricky subject to talk about because I have a problem with Christians who say, like let's say someone gives you a car, and you go, hallelujah, God gave me a car. If you didn't thank the guy that gave you the car, that's not right. So I still think that car still comes from God because God creates this social environment for us. By having God's love shine through me, it changes the environment here. It changes the environment. So it's God that's changing that environment. That's how I see it. So when that turns around and people buy the books, so that's the amazing thing, right? When people buy my books, not only do I get a little bit of money out of that. Now, if they get them, if they buy the book from Amazon, it's truly a little bit of money. I think most of the books, if you buy the book from Amazon, I get $2. So we're not talking riches here. So, but what's amazing to me that what I like to the reason I like people buying the book from Amazon is it's a physical book. And it has its way, a physical book has its way of making it around to other people. And now other people are getting helped too. And that's where my heart is. So the more sales there are, that means the more people out there getting helped by this stuff. Now, am I saying that every single person that does this stuff is going to get helped? Yeah, I can't say that's. I'm not promising that. I can't do that. Richie says, you helped me already to play better, so you have your part in the world peace. Good. All right. Well, I'm way over, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Um, it's always a blessing for me to be able to do this every week. So, yeah, thanks. See you next week. God bless you and have a great weekend.